This is how I make a yeast starter. There's a few different ways to do it, but this way works for me. This is the equipment you need to do it. 200 grams of dry malt extract. Any dry malt extract will work. A little bit of, I use Star San, but any sanitizer will work. You need a stir bar, the yeast you're planning on using, a little bit of aluminum foil, some scissors, 2,000 milliliters of water, and a pot. The ratio of dry malt extract to water is 10 to 1, so 2,000 milligrams of water to 200 grams of dry malt extract. So I've placed the 2,000 milliliters of water into the pot. I use a wide brimmed pot that's kind of deep for this purpose. I've had it boil over in the past and it makes a sticky mess and it's just terrible. So I typically do this in a separate pot and then add it to the Erlenmeyer flask, and I've just kind of bent a pour spout in here to make my life a little easier. I'm sanitizing the Erlenmeyer flask with just a little bit more water in there. I'm going to let that boil out and that will sanitize the whole inside of it, and then I'll pour that water out and cover it with some sanitized aluminum foil. I do have the stir bar in there, so that'll get sanitized too, but I'm going to take the dry malt extract and add it to the water and thoroughly mix it in. You want to bring this up to a boil and let it boil a good 5 or 10 minutes. Make sure everything in here is sterilized. Break up all the clumps of dry malt extract with your whisk, and you want to keep stirring it as it comes up to a boil, because it will boil over if you're not paying attention. Okay, so we're finally up to a boil, and it's been boiling nicely. I didn't have a problem with any boilovers with this wide pot. I have boiled in the Erlenmeyer flasks before, and they're heat proof, so you can, but with a tall, narrow neck vessel, boilovers happen all the time. So I suggest you use a wide pot like this, but I'm just boiling water in here and the stir bar, and that's sterilizing the whole vessel. So we're going to let that go, and we're going to let the wort go here in this, and we're going to let that boil and get sterilized. So I'm pouring the boiling water out of the Erlenmeyer flask. It should be all sanitized now. I'll leave the stir bar in there. We'll set that in the sink. We'll take the boiling wort. We'll pour that in the flask. We'll take some sanitized aluminum foil, cover this up, and we'll fill this sink up with cold water and we'll let that chill. So I have my sink full of cold water. It's above where the wort is, but you want to keep continuously testing this water, because that's going to heat it up, and it feels pretty cold now, but it will eventually warm up, which in that case you want to drain the water out, fill it back up with cold water. What you're trying to do is get the wort down to below 100 degrees. Room temperature would be best, so the longer you keep it in here the better. You could add some ice and that would speed things up a little bit. So the wort seems to be cooled down now, below room temperature. It's nice and cool. So I'm just going to dry it off, and I'll add the yeast to it. And I take my yeast that's been soaking in Star San and my scissors, and I cut it open. Pour this in. So we'll take some sanitizer and sanitize the aluminum foil. Place that loosely on the flask. Tip the flask a little bit so we get the stir bar down to the lower edge. We can put that on the stir plate, let the magnet pick it up, turn it on, and we're done. So we'll leave the starter like this on the stir plate for about 24 hours, and over that time you'll see a krausen form. You'll see some foam, a foam layer in here, probably about after 12 hours. But if you're going to make a starter for a 5-gallon batch, 2,000 milliliters will be fine. I'm going to do a 10-gallon batch, so I will make another 2,000 milliliter starter tomorrow and add it to this in a 5,000 milliliter Erlenmeyer flask, and then put that on a stir plate for another day, and then I'll brew the following day after that. So you just leave it like this, and everything will be fine. The foil cap here is on a little loose. We get some oxygen flowing, and you can adjust your speed so you get just a little bit of a dimple of wort with the stir bar. You'll see it just a little bit of a dimple, and that will be fine.